But tonight I won't let that
So, have you ever heard of Aristotle's final cause? Well, Aristotle's final cause claimed that everything created is created with a final purpose or a final cause in mind. But that's not all. It also, all things created have these purposes that happen along the way to getting to the final cause. So there's a ripple effect that's created by everything and anything we do or create. But we're going to be digging a little bit deeper and talking about really the philosophy of all this in just a second. So if you want to join the conversation and see how this might relate to your life and your work, stick around because we're coming right back with that. Welcome to Waist Up Wardrobe. I'm Christine Vartanian, a civil engineer and attorney turned personal style expert and image consultant. As the founder of Jade for All Seasons, I am passionate about unveiling the inner confidence of my clients by developing their personal style. But is getting dressed up still important in our virtual world? Well, that's where my experience can help with what I call Waist Up Wardrobe. Waist Up Wardrobe is a podcast for all things you need to conduct an outstanding Zoom meeting. It's about how to dress for the camera, but it's not just about the clothes. It's about everything you need to know to show up on brand and professionally for the camera. Join me in the Waist Up Wardrobe studio to discuss how to navigate this virtual world and dominate from behind the desk. Welcome, Waist Up Wardrobe Nation, to the first episode of the new year. And we are bringing you a new episode on something that's kind of philosophical. And I think that we're just going to nerd out a little bit on a little bit of philosophy, but this definitely relates to work and life. And I would love for Rick to come up here and say Happy New Year to everybody, because I want to thank him in person. And say Happy New Year, Rick.
Happy New Year, Christine. Happy New Year to everybody.
Yeah. We've got 124th episode today under our belt.
That is amazing. You know, it's gone this long and takes a lot of dedication and preparation and hard work and focus to be able to do that. So congratulations with that achievement.
Well, and thank you for being a part of it. And Susie Hickson is here. She's saying Happy New Year. Thank you for chiming in, Susie. I bet you'll really like today's conversation because Susie is a friend of mine, also a fellow and a colleague in law. And I think that this is going to be a fascinating topic. I want to thank everybody for being here. Thank you, Rick, for all the dedication you have demonstrated to this show and for always being on brand with the Waist Up Wardrobe hat.
Yeah, see, right there.
Today, we're going to be talking about Aristotle's final cause. And I was fascinated by this concept because I was sitting in a retreat one day and the speaker brought up the final cause. And she was like, "What is the final cause?" And she was explaining it. And I thought, wow, this is such an interesting idea and concept. You can relate this to so many things in life and business. And it really, what it is, let me just start out by saying that Aristotle had this claim that everything that is created has a final cause. But that's not all. The first, we have to talk about actually Aristotle's four causes before we talk about the final cause. And he had claimed that, everything has a material cause, everything has a formal cause, an efficient cause, and finally, a final cause. And I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but because I took the time to actually outline those four, I'm going to define them really quickly. And then we're going to really just focus on the final cause. So, the material cause is what the thing is made of. So let's just take for an example a table, right? So a table is built or created to ultimately maybe allow people to sit around the table and have a meal. That would be its final cause. Its material cause is what it's made of. So it's actually the wood that is being used to be repurposed to create this piece of furniture. And then there's the final cause. I'm sorry, excuse me, the formal cause. The formal cause is basically how it's designed, how it's put together, how it's arranged, the way the legs of this table look, um, and maybe the size of it. So all that is what he called the formal cause. And finally, before the final cause, there is the efficient cause. What or who made it? So the carpenter that built it, the people that collaborated in creating the finish on it, all those people are the people that built it. They would be the efficient cause. And so this is so interesting to me because it actually relates to business in a lot of ways. We create so many things in our business. For instance, I have an offering that I create where it's called the Jade Capsule Wardrobe. And the final cause of that is to build a wardrobe for somebody so that they can, have these new clothes that they can wear. But the ripple effect of causes, the other purposes along the way are things like they gain confidence when they have this wardrobe. They end up attracting their ideal client because they're showing up differently. So there's all these other purposes where the final cause might be to create a wardrobe that they can wear. There's other causes and purposes for it. That's where it gets very interesting when it comes to business. So let's take a couple other examples just to clarify what this final cause is, or really all the four causes are. Like a bronze statue that is sculpted, right? The bronze statue is made from bronze, so that would be its initial cause. That would be what they call the I just lost track of my thoughts. Not the final cause, the formal cause. That would be its formal cause, right? It's made of bronze. And its efficient cause is what it's made, is who made it, right? The sculptor made it. And it's a formal cause. So we formal cause, efficient cause, and I messed all those up. So let's start from the beginning. The material cause is the bronze, right? It's made up of bronze. The formal cause is how it's arranged, and the efficient cause is who made it. So for the bronze statues, the bronze is the material cause, the formal cause is how it was designed, what it's going to look like, and the efficient cause is who built it, the sculptor, right? And its final cause is maybe that it sits in an auditorium or a courtyard to enhance the aesthetics of it. Let's take this to kind of a different level. If the final cause of, taking a walk or doing a run is to stay healthy and keep your cardiovascular health well, what could be the kind of the ripple effect of causes along the way, right? And I would say, not only is the end result to be healthy and have a good cardiovascular health, but you are inspiring people along the way. You are getting more fit. You're getting aesthetically more trim. And there's so many other things along the way that maybe you don't even know the causes that you're creating when you are doing something like that, right? Um, so so in the context of building something or doing an action, or let's say studying, right? What is the final cause of studying? Well, maybe the final cause of studying is to pass the test, but the cause along the way is actually to learn the material, is to get better at something and really educate yourself. So I hope I'm clarifying exactly how that works. And Rick, I don't know if you have any other examples of that, or what your thoughts are, and if that's resonating, or you understand how I'm trying to explain it. I did a goof and messed up all my causes, but I think I corrected myself.
No, I was following. It was I thought you well explained it. I mean, it's a different way of thinking of the purpose of what you're actually trying to accomplish, and the mechanics along the way.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the interesting thing here is that it's kind of a deep idea, right? But I feel as though everything applies to it, because we talked about, like just sculpting a sculpture, or creating a piece of furniture, or studying, or being, running, right? Those ideas, there's a final result or purpose for doing something like that. But it's important not to forget all the other purposes, because sometimes, and this is why I bring this up, sometimes we're all so focused on the final cause that if we don't get there, we feel like it was wasted.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you a question now
Yeah,
that we're talking about this.
yeah,
What and this would be a great example for the audience to help define the final cause. But in your own words, or your definition of this discussion, what would you say is the final cause of this show?
very good question. So that is such a good question, because I was actually thinking about that as I was putting this presentation together, this show together, the show notes. I was thinking, it's so interesting to me, because like when you do a show like this, you're sometimes the final cause, or the main purpose is like to grow an audience, like a big audience that follows you, and you increase your sphere of influence, which is certainly definitely a cause, right? But what I found is that more than that, because that's maybe how I started out, more than building the I know Susie's like, dang, Rick, that was a good question. um, in building the show, I've created so much amazing content that not only did I educate myself, I have created, I mean, I get emails and texts all the time saying, oh my gosh, this show inspired me to do this. This show inspired me to do this. I never thought Waist Up Wardrobe would relate to mindset issues, because we've had conversations, right? The idea of the tongue-in-cheek approach that we take entertains people. That is another added cause or purpose. And the fact that Waist Up Wardrobe is a catchy name, and what ended up happening is now people know me as Waist Up Wardrobe, and it actually has gotten me a lot of attention in that way in my business. So look at all these little causes along the way. Even though I started out saying I want to build this giant sphere of influence, which I know there's so many people here that come and watch a show, but still, like, when you have these aspirations to grow, millions of viewers, if that doesn't happen, that doesn't mean that this is not valuable, that it didn't have purposes. And there are so many purposes. And Susie's like, I've learned so much from having a podcast. Absolutely, right? That is exact. I mean, the whole exercise of preparing for a podcast and getting ready for it, Rick, you know how that goes. We've gone organized, we have a system, having guests on. I mean, that has really been such a learning curve for me. How about you? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, when I first started doing this 6 years ago, we knew that I knew that we had to systematize it somehow, so we could get into a rhythm, to be able to produce something every week, right? And
Yeah,
so if we had that framework together and the planning well ahead of time, then it was much easier to stay on target and stay on schedule, to be able to do it once a week versus trying to come up with something last minute. And that's always the challenge, because you run into that, you run into the point where it's like, okay, what, I don't know what I'm going to talk about tomorrow,
yeah,
or in the next show, and then all of a sudden it hits you. But but for the most part, you and I have gotten into a pretty good rhythm over the last 124 now episodes,
Yeah.
and so we know what to expect with each other. It makes it easier to produce something as easy and sometimes very complex as this show can get when you have guests and they're remote, and all the different variables of trying to do a live stream. But
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the detail, sometimes I go into the detail, a lot of detail, because I feel like I like to dig deep and just kind of really understanding it. Sometimes we just have to do a top level just to get that out to the masses, and then, more inquiries come beyond that. And Susie's saying she calls it ancillary benefit byproducts. Yes, exactly. That is exactly what it is. And sometimes we don't even know the impact it could be having. It could be somebody that's silently watching that gets impacted, that never really, expresses that they've been impacted by the show. But there's so many like ideas here, and no so many examples. Like, for instance, I was talking to somebody, I was interviewing for a job, and she, I was telling her, we're talking about this, and she said, "Well, I went to that interview, but I kind of knew I wasn't going to get the job, but I did it for practice." So in this instance here, you go to interview for a job, the final cause is to get the job, right? But in that instance, it was for her to get practice.
mm,
So you that is a really great example of the difference between final cause and some cause along the way that is an experience or a lesson. Yeah, isn't that a great example of that?
that is, and you go into it in that situation, you go into it with a different mindset, not to actually get the job, right? But to kind of work out all the kinks
Yeah,
for the time that you are actually interviewing for a job that you actually want.
yeah.
So that's an interesting mindset to go in like that. You probably go in a little bit more relaxed,
Hmm.
because there's no expectation out of it other than just it's a practice session.
Yeah. Or if you go into a job that you really, really want and you don't end up getting the job, but you go through this process and you realize, I'm so much better. I'll be so much better for my next interview because
Mhm.
I've been through this process. So
Yeah.
that's the learning experience, right?
Mhm.
The other thing is, I just think as high achievers and business owners and people who are go-getters, we forget that if we don't get to that final purpose, that final cause, that we haven't failed. I think sometimes we're so hard on ourselves, where if we didn't get to that actual final result that we intended when we started, that we failed, but we forget the lessons along the way. And I think that's why it's so important in business to kind of think about this concept, that the only cause involved is not the final cause. Yeah, of course you want to be able to create an offering and sell it and somebody buy it and then benefit from it, but sometimes there are these byproducts, like Susie says, these ancillary byproducts are so valuable that you have to pay attention to as well. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. And sometimes even the process that we're going through, um, you end up offering things that you didn't intentionally mean to offer,
Yeah,
and people realize benefits that you didn't even think about, um, along the way. Like you said, I mean, these are the byproducts of just going through the process and providing benefits in one way, and actually for another person, they see it in a totally different way that may change the way they think and change the way they do business. And so, it's the funny thing is this would have never happened if you never did this show, right?
right. Right, exactly. And so the other thing with the show, going back to your original question, which I think is such a great question, because I actually thought about that while I was preparing, and is that it has stretched me so much from a creative standpoint. It stretches my imagination to think about a new show and how that would fold into Waist Up Wardrobe, and it's actually gotten me so many more personal connections and relationships, because I've gotten to meet guests that I would never have otherwise met, and we've collaborated. I mean, so there's an end result, right? Or at least one of the results. So it's just so fascinating. And it gives us opportunity to be speaking all the time, which is such an important thing for the work that I do.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I listen to you now. right? Compared to when we first started the show. And, you know, you really didn't like to be in front of the camera. But then now that I hear, you know, these conferences that you go to and you have the opportunity to stand up in front of thousands of people, to share, you know, your journey and do these different types of things. It's like, I mean, who would have known it would have just starting Waist Up Wardrobe would have got you that opportunity to do that, or speak in, you know, or to speak internationally, or speak in these different venues that you had the opportunity to speak in. So these are absolutely ancillary byproducts of, you know, what you started.
Yeah, it is quite incredible when you think about the sort of that spider effect, that web that has been created, and maybe it wasn't exactly the target of growing a giant audience. It's just it's pretty fascinating. You know, another great example is, you know, somebody entering into some kind of a competition, like let's say a running competition, for example, and their goal is to come in at the top three. And so they train and train and train and train, and then it's a long, grueling journey, but they fall short of the top three. You know, if that was a final cause and that was the only cause, what a disappointment that could be. But think about all the training that went into that, all the mindset work, all the rigor and the endurance work that has made that person better. Those are all those little ancillary purposes and the ancillary byproducts of not necessarily getting to the final cause, but there's so many other benefits along the way.
So
So
let me ask you this. You probably have this in your wrap up, but I'm going to jump to it because
yeah,
we've been talking about um, these causes. But for 2023, and you're speaking to maybe a potential client, or maybe you're coaching somebody, what would you suggest to them with this thought in mind of wrapping the idea of Aristotle's four causes? How what would you say to them in preparation for the new year, and how they should look at things that they do in their business?
yeah. I guess part of it is I'm kind of happy you brought that question up because I was as I was gonna end the show, I was gonna tie this into my why to the why to the why exercise. I don't know if you predicted that, but when I think about final cause, that's a purpose, right? And I do a lot of work with clients when I'm helping with their brand about really exploring their why, not just the superficial why, which might be really like the final cause, but going deeper and finding out what the other ancillary causes are that really give that final byproduct. So when I'm talking to clients in that whole exercise of why are you doing this? What's the purpose? And digging deep into really what the visceral purpose is, this idea of a final cause will definitely tie in, right? What is your final purpose? What is the point of you offering this certain offering? And then kind of working back and helping them realize that even if, you know, they have a final cause in mind, if that one doesn't get achieved, there's all these other benefits that they can offer, um, even if that final cause isn't achieved. Does that answer your question, or did I miss the mark?
It did. I guess I was looking for something deeper because
Deeper than that?
yeah,
Wow.
because you tend to
Okay.
because you tend to start shallow and then with a deep target in mind. So I was waiting for you to dive a
Well,
little
deep.
deeper.
I mean, you know, the whole exercise of the why to the why to the why, that's a pretty deep conversation and totally relates to this final cause. Don't you see the tie-in?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. So um as I was sort of putting this whole talk together, putting my show notes together, I was kind of reflecting really on how Aristotle's final cause relates to the why work, the why of the work that people do, why they do it. Um, and that the superficial why, like for me, for instance, dressing women in great wardrobe to make them feel great. So Susie said, Christine, I need to set up an appointment with you to work on my why cubed. Yes, we got to do that. We got to do that. And with the hashtag, if you don't know if you're ready with this, Rick, but the hashtag cause and shine. How about if we do that? And I gift that to you, Susie. So hashtag cause and shine. And whoever puts in that hashtag cause and shine will get on a call and really dig into your why. and really trying to find it, but find out where it comes from, your actual real purpose, the deep purpose for what it is that you do. So as I was reflecting on Aristotle's final cause and all the causes in between, I really started seeing the connection between the why work and the final cause theory, idea, whatever you want to call it, right? And I thought, wow, this is so related to that. Like for me, again, building a wardrobe is sort of the final cause, but elevating every woman's confidence is sort of the deeper cause, and that's a byproduct of this. And helping them show up in business so that they attract their ideal client, that's even deeper than that. And of course, I get that reward of serving these women because I really wanted to see women shine. Just having had a mom who sacrificed a lot and seeing her sacrifice, I really wanted her. I wanted to, as a tribute to her and women everywhere, create this place where I can really make them feel amazing. So the deeper why, all these causes that lead to simply creating a wardrobe that makes them feel great. So there's the connection there, really. And with the hashtag cause and shine, we'll sit down and we'll talk about your why cubed, as Susie termed it. So it's the why to the why to the why you do the work that you do, what's the deeper purpose, and what has compelled you in your life to do that. And I will say again, and I've said this before, that when we are connected to our deepest why, that deep why, we can never fail in business, because every time we have a bad day or something doesn't go the way we expected it, if we think back to why we've even started this work, we'll say to ourselves, well, we can't stop now, right? That is really the main purpose of the work, and it keeps you going. So the waist up wardrobe wrap up is that the main takeaway is that remember that even though you start everything or create anything with a final cause in mind, there are all these byproducts, all these ripple effects along the way that are just as important as the final cause. So don't give up on something or lose hope about something if you don't actually get to the final cause, because you've created all these byproduct causes along the way. A tip to think about is really sit down and think about maybe something you've created, and try and kind of explore what the final cause is and all the other causes that it creates. Because I think if you can do that with a lot of your offerings or anything you're trying to create, it will give you such motivation to know that you're on the right track. A tool to use, of course, is always the show, because I laid out the 4 causes of Aristotle, and we kind of did a little bit of a variation on it by talking about all the other causes and purposes along the way. So we added some other causes before you get to the final cause. And finally, action item. It's a new year, and we have to always be efficient with our time. So focus on those things that are going to help you grow. Focus on the things that are helping people, and think about what your final cause is. But don't forget that you have other causes that you are creating, other purposes that you're creating along the way. So there you have it, the Waist Up Wardrobe Weekly Wrap Up. And we will be here again next week at 11:30 with a new fresh show. And Happy New Year. So we are really hitting the ground running, and we have a lot of great guests lined up for the next quarter and a lot of great content and shows. So join us.
Okay.
All right. One of my goals this year, I'm hoping, maybe not when we have guests, but is to keep the show like within the 35-minute range. That's one of my goals as well. But sometimes when there's guests, it's harder to do.
Yeah. No, you did good. This was under half an hour, so it was good.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is kind of a short and sweet conversation, but I think it is so cool and relevant and just gets people thinking,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to do the speedy recap.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Let me get out of here and let's see. Okay, when you're ready.
Okay, hold on one second. I need to figure out. I don't remember what the title was for this. Oh, what is a final cause? Okay, I see it on the thing. Okay. All right. Have you ever heard of Aristotle's final cause? Well, Aristotle's final cause says that everything's created with a final purpose or a final cause in mind. But that's not all. There are all these ripple effects, all these ancillary purposes of the thing you're creating before you even get to the final cause. So, how do you use that so that it can enhance your life and your work? Oh, did that end abruptly?
Yeah, you left me hanging.
Yeah, well, so that I was doing the so that part, and I don't know how to phrase that. So I said, so should I go from the so that? So how do you use the final cause so that you can enhance your work and your life?
Yeah, that would be better. Yep.
Yeah. So how do you use Aristotle's final cause so that you can enhance your life and your work?
Okay.
Better?
Good. Yep.
Okay. In episode 124 of Waste Up Wardrobe, what is the final cause? Okay, now I'm going to do that over again. Okay. In episode 124 of Waste Up Wardrobe, what is a final cause? We discuss Aristotle's final cause in detail, but we also go into all the 4 causes that he outlines. So the main takeaway here is that everything has a final cause. But don't forget that not only does it have a final cause, it has all these causes along the way, all these ancillary purposes that give it value. A tip is think about all the things you're creating in your business or in life and think about what the final cause is, but also reflect on what it has done along the way. If you're planning to run a marathon and you don't come in at the top third because that was your final cause, but you've inspired so many people and you've up leveled your health, wow, well, those are really important causes that happened along the way, even though you didn't get to the final cause. Finally, the tool here is use the show where I outline the 4 causes that Aristotle outlines and claims and use it to really try and understand where are in the things that you're creating, what are your final causes? I'm gonna do that part over again when it comes to tool, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. A tool to use is the show where I outline the 4 causes of Aristotle, including the final cause. Think about the things that you're creating in your business or in life or in work. And think about what the final purpose is, what their final cause is. But don't forget to also think about all the things that you're creating along the way. And as an action item, go and reflect on some of the things that you are working on and think about what is that final purpose and why are you doing it? But think a little deeper, not only why you're doing it for that final cause, but all the things that are going to happen, all the byproducts, the ancillary causes that are going to come out of that as a benefit along the way.
Cool.
Yeah. All done.
All right,
Yeah.
hold on. Let me stop this.
Yeah.